The group said that he'll be heading to Tehran soon to meet with the new Iranian government in hopes of averting a regional disaster by trying to bring Iran back to the table. Our own Josh Letterman sat down with him to find out more. Have a listen.
The U.S. has been using all of these various metaphors to describe the prospects for coming back to the Iran deal. The runway is shortening, the clock is ticking, the door is closing. And in the meantime, you have the U.S. and Israel now pretty openly talking about a plan B, which is widely perceived to insinuate a military option. I'm curious, what does a plan B look like to the IAEA, and what are your fears if plan A fails?
I would say what we are focusing at the moment is on keeping our inspection activity ongoing, which has some challenges at the moment, and making sure that when and if there is a return to the JCPOA, then the whole thing would be verifiable. One should never forget that we are the guarantors of whatever is agreed at the political table. So our contribution, if I can put it like that, is essential in any case. So we are permanently following this.
How open of a level of communication do you have with the Iranians right now, particularly at a political level? For example, when was the last time you were able to speak with the foreign minister?
Well, I have never spoken to the new foreign minister. I hope to be able to do it soon.
So let's talk about your inspection capabilities right now. If Iran were to move today to race toward a bomb, are you confident that you would be able to tell?
Well, I would say the following. First of all, I don't have any impression or any information indicating that is the case. I think one should be very clear and not confuse your audience here, first. Number two, I believe we would be able.
How?
Because of what I indicated. We have a very important, very robust inspection presence in Iran every day. Our inspectors are there 24/7 the whole year. The whole year.
It's been more than 15 years since North Korea first had a nuclear test. Their programs continued unabated. By most estimates, they have a couple dozen, at least, warheads. When Iran looks at North Korea, do you think that they see a cautionary tale or an example to follow?
If diplomacy fails, you may be confronted with a situation that would have enormous political impact and reverberations in the Middle East and beyond. So I think that it is not maybe for, it's perhaps not about imagining what Iran would be thinking when they look at DPRK. It is us, it is all of us as an international community that should think about what may happen if, let alone Iran, any country would go the nuclear road.
All right, my good friend Josh Letterman joins me now to discuss more about the political deadlock between the U.S. and Iran and, of course, his interview. Josh, fascinating interview there. Greatly appreciate you bringing that to us. How much does it seem from that conversation that you had and just from your reporting generally, how much does it seem like restoring the Iran nuclear deal or at least trying to work up a new one is a priority for the United States? Because President Biden said that he wanted to do it. We're 10 months into his presidency. We are not seeing, or at least it doesn't appear that we're any closer to a deal than before. And now we're hearing of this Plan B possibility.
Well, look, it's obvious the U.S. would like to get back to the deal as soon as possible in the way they keep dangling out these punishments. You know, the door is closing, you know, time is running short. It's almost like a parent when they're trying to get a kid to stop doing something. You say, all right, I'm going to punish you on the count of 3. 1, 2, 2.5, 2 3/4, you know, hoping that at the last minute they'll finally come back and do what they're supposed to. But the flip side here, Eamon, is the fact that the U.S. government understands that the Iran deal is of diminishing help at this point for several reasons. First of all, we're only 3 years away from when those first sunsets in that deal takes place. And after that, in 2027, 2030, more of those restrictions on Iran's nuclear activity end up sunsetting, meaning they'll be allowed to do this stuff. So the U.S., if they're going to go back to it, wants to go back to something that lasts a longer time and also is stronger. But the Iranians are saying, no, 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 if we go back, we're going back to the deal that we struck in 2016. The other element here that makes the U.S. a little bit cagey about going back to the deal is the fact that, you know, you can bomb a factory. You can't bomb knowledge out of a country. Even if they were to go back to the deal now, Iran has learned so much, even in the last period of time since the U.S. left the Iran deal, that some of that knowledge would keep Iran closer, hypothetically, to a bomb despite going back to that deal.
And listen, I can tell you as a father of a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, warning my children that they're going to be sent to timeout and then giving them a countdown clock does not necessarily work. So that's just based on my own parenting experience. Let me ask you, just because I was fascinated by the fact that you asked him whether or not he had met with or spoken to the Iranian foreign minister, and he said he intends to do so very soon. Whose court is the ball in, so to speak? Try to explain to us, like, in terms of the mechanics of who we're waiting on to see whether or not we're going to get back into a deal.
Well, one thing is clear is that the Biden administration is spending a lot of time trying to figure out who exactly is calling the shots in Iran right now on the nuclear file. Is it President Raisi? Is it the Supreme National Security Council? What role is the Revolutionary Guards playing, et cetera? And so I think that's one of the reasons the IAEA head also wants to be able to speak directly to the foreign minister to have a better sense of exactly where they stand right now. That foreign minister, he actually said during a meeting with his Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov, last week, that he expects Iran very soon will get back to those talks to get back into the deal. But you also, I think, played some of President Raisi saying kind of the opposite. So there's been mixed signals there, and certainly everyone is waiting to see whether the Irans will actually get back into more constructive talks.
Again, in your interview, one of the notable moments was the IAEA director telling you that he had no impression or any information indicating that Iran was about to make a nuclear bomb. But we hear a lot of mixed messages from the Israeli side on all of this. In August, you had Israel's defense minister, Benny Gantz, saying that Iran was only 2 months away from getting the materials necessary for a nuclear weapon. Then last week, the former Mossad intelligence chief, Yossi Cohen, said that Iran is no closer than before and that they actually have less support than in the past. What is the Biden administration thinking in terms of Iran's clock in getting a bomb?
Well, traditionally, they've been talking about it in terms of months that it would take Iran to develop that kind of material. But nuclear experts also tell us, there's a difference between having enough material for a single bomb and actually being able to reliably produce nuclear warheads and then fit them onto a delivery device that could bring them to a target. And that's where they think that Iran is much farther off from actually being a full-fledged nuclear-armed state. But you don't know what you don't know, right? And that's one of the problems here.
Right.
In his most recent report to the IAEA board, Director General Grossi told them there are sites in Iran where we have found the Iranians had nuclear material. They didn't declare it to the international community. They moved it, and now we don't know where it is. They also have this issue you alluded to in the opening about these cameras they're no longer able to access at that site in the Tehran suburbs where they make parts for centrifuges. They now have a gap in knowledge. It's kind of like when police are tracking a crime and they want to know the chain of evidence, who had the gun the whole time. There's now going to be a period, even if Iran comes back to the table, lets full inspections occur, there's going to be a period of time where the IAEA cannot account for what happened at that facility. And as according to Grossi in our interview, he says that creates the possibility the world will never be able to put together the full puzzle of what's taken place with Iran's nuclear program.
All right, Josh Letterman, fascinating conversation there. Greatly appreciate it. Always a pleasure to have you on, Josh. Thank you.
Thanks, Eamon.